Hope everybody had a nice weekend, a busy weekend, a lot going on in the world of sports, and just obviously a lot going on of everything that happened last week that we spent majority of the week and every single show throughout the week talking about, and we'll talk about a little bit more. But I hope everyone's having a good morning so far. Again, we are streaming live on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. And of course, listening in if you're driving around on Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. You guys can text us anytime on the show at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. But just a lot of stuff to get into today. I know a lot of people are curious, and we are continuing our discussion about everything that transpired last week with the outgoing president, David Lassner, terminating the beloved athletics director for the University of Hawaii at Manoa, in Craig Angeles. So there has been some stuff that has not really come up, but more brought to our attention, and we've been talking about it a lot throughout the week, obviously, and I've been very vocal on social media, but something that we were able to uncover thanks to our Michael Lescaro is some of the stuff that has been happening throughout the year. And I really wanted to bring that to light. Again, if this whole thing can't be overturned, and I know fans, including myself and a lot of the donors, are very passionate about attempting or trying to get this overturned and hoping Craig Angeles can still be the athletics director for the foreseeable future, there are some deeper issues, so that if there is no way that he is still the athletics director, there are issues to bring to light that I am very, very passionate about, and making people aware that this is not a new problem that has been going on, and holding the athletics department accountable, and including the outgoing president, as I said, David Lassner, and including making sure this is known for the incoming president in Wendy Hensel. So one of the things that has got brought up during the Board of Regents meeting last Thursday, but also has been a problem for a long time, are issues, Title IX issues that have been affecting the track and field team. And specifically, one of those players, or Amy Malia Warrington, a local girl, has been very vocal since the beginning of last year and for a long time now, and even during the summer. And a lot of these things have come up, and they were adamant last week, Thursday, that a lot of these issues that they have been fighting for and being vocal about haven't gotten fixed until Craig Angeles was the athletics director, and he made things happen. So even if from a business perspective, and we know the president wants to take whatever credit for Mountain West stuff, yeah, sure, like big picture, okay, you need multiple people to get things done. But the fact that a lot of these complaints, and very valid complaints, have just continued to fall on deaf ears until Craig Angeles stepped in and did something, I think is very important to highlight. So we will get into that. I kind of did a long tease there, and we're still going to, again, you guys know I'm passionate. Anytime the student athletes are speaking out, we're getting passionate about it. But we will talk about that extensive detail, because there's a lot. So we're going to talk about it in the back half of this hour. Coming up in the first half of this hour, we'll get to some University of Hawaii football chat in just a second, taking out its senior week for the UH football team, because we still want to talk about all the other sports, right? The student athletes, they didn't cause this, so we still want to give them coverage. Just how I encourage you guys to still go out. Do not boycott the games itself. You feel free to boycott the tailgate, though. I know a lot of people are doing that. That's happening. But the games itself, please show up, especially the final game of the season for the Rainbow Warrior football team this Saturday at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex. We hope to see you guys there. Also coming up a little later in this hour, we will talk some UH men's basketball, as they had a big game against North Carolina on Friday. That was a fun time, and by far the best challenge that the Rainbow Warrior basketball team had so far, and probably the best opponent they will play. And also coming up in the second hour, we'll talk about the University of Hawaii women's games that they had as well, and the Rainbow Wahine looking even stronger than we expected them. And this weekend will be a big weekend, not only for some of the other sports and also women's volleyball and everything. But there was kind of a big upset in the women's basketball world in that UCLA, an opponent that Hawaii plays this weekend, they upset the number one team and defending national champion South Carolina this weekend. So there was a lot. On top of how wonky the NFL was over the weekend and college football with the upsets that they've had. And thankfully that, it's kind of fun to chuckle that CC got... and everything that's going on, at least we can look forward to things getting a little crazy in the college football playoff landscape and college football rankings and all of that stuff with the football playoff stuff coming out tomorrow, by the way. But yeah, there's just a lot to get into. But anyways, just kind of an early look this week at the big game happening Saturday. I can't believe the football season is already all pow. This is crazy how
flew
fast.
By, didn't it?
And three buys flew by as well. And New Mexico coming into town now. New Mexico opened as the 2-point favorite at Circus Sports. The total 61.5. So expecting another high scoring offense. And New Mexico, they've kind of had one of those, it's weird, right? Some of these teams that you weren't really expecting to do well are kind of intriguing throughout the weekend. I mean, we've talked extensively about Nevada and everything like that, but even New Mexico coming into town is not necessarily going to be an easy opponent per se that we maybe have thought of in the beginning of the season. Oh yeah, New Mexico, they're kind of an easy team. They're traditionally, they don't really do much between New Mexico and New Mexico State, but they've had some pretty they're on a 2-game win streak. They won at San Diego State 21-16, and then they beat, this was the big one, they upset number 18 Washington State, number 18 at the time, 38-35, and also got wins against Utah State at Utah State, where obviously we know how that worked out for Hawaii, but they won at Utah State 50-45, had a big win against Air Force 52-37. Even Air Force, they somehow figured it out down the stretch of the season. That's kind of crazy.
They have 4 wins now, which is more than whoever they played yesterday. I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time down the stretch. New Mexico also has wins at New Mexico State 50-40. Again, starting off the season, started off 0-4 with losses to Montana State, Arizona, Auburn, Fresno State, but then were able to turn it around. And then they got those 3 wins in a row, lost at Colorado State, lost against Wyoming, which Colorado State went down. So now UNLV all of a sudden could make it into the Mountain West Championship game against Boise's in it. Boise locked up being in the Mountain West Championship game. Had a close one, though. Almost lost this time around. That's how crazy it was in college football if you guys didn't see the score. But now we're looking at, hey, this is going to be a fun final game of the season. As we know, Hawaii tends to play a lot better at home. We cannot get the same situation that we saw at Utah State. I don't think we will. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we show up and show out against New Mexico on Saturday.
100%. I mean, this is similar to last year's finale, right? Where you're celebrating a large group of seniors who have given a lot to the program. This is kind of like the group that stuck with Timmy Chang a few years ago when he first took over. So should be an emotional night in that sense. And then from there, New Mexico's fighting for their bowl lives. They're 5-6 going into this game. They need a win. Very similar, if you remember, to last season. Colorado State came into TC Ching needing a win. And we got a crazy, crazy finish. And for Kansei Matsuzawa's mental health, I pray that we don't get the same type of ending because, oh my Lord, what a insane finish to...
Was that the one where they thought...
They thought the clock was going to stop.
Well, they faked all of us and then they ran out there.
They thought the clock was going to be stopped, so they didn't think they needed to run out onto the field. The clock was not stopped, so they then needed to sprint onto the field, get set for the snap, get set for the kick. Shipley had to be just ready to go, basically 1-2 step into it and swing your leg. And he did, and Hawaii won on a last-second field goal. That's the type of thing you might miss if you don't show out and support these seniors and just these student athletes on Saturday. I can't recommend going any more than this, I guess. It's going to be fun. I mean, Hawaii always plays better at home. The defense, I expect to bounce back after what was just a really, really uncharacteristic showing at Utah State.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to because, kind of like you mentioned, New Mexico puts up points. Doesn't matter where they go. They can be home, they can be away. They're going to put up points. So you need to be on your P's and Q's. And I expect Dennis Thurman to have Hawaii's defense ready for them and ready to go because that's what you have to have. And then offensively, can Hawaii's offense get it going? Will we see Braden Shager? How's he feeling? How's practice going to go this week if he can't go? Is it Micah Alihado that we do end up seeing? Or do we continue to see John Keave Songapolo-Telly get in there along with Micah and rotate back and forth? There are a ton of questions going into this weekend, and all of them need to be answered. And on top of it all, you still get to play potential spoiler for one of your Mountain West rivals.
It doesn't feel as good as if it were to be like a Fresno State. But you're right. It's like we can spoil the fun for anybody coming in here. I think it'll be interesting. I got to go look at maybe some highlights of New Mexico because the only thing that concerns me where you look at how many points they put up, where it's similar to looking like how Utah State is. And part of the reason why Utah State is able to put up so many points is because they play that up-tempo offense, and that's something that Hawaii's defense, if there's any weakness in Hawaii's defense that we've saw, it's just having to deal with that up-tempo movement, right? Because we talked about it before. Michael Esquero brought up that Dennis Thurman is a very good chess player, so he knows how to set the pieces and where to go and call the defense. But if you face an offense that is just moving, it doesn't really give you that amount of time to quickly set your chess pieces in order. And where we've seen Hawaii struggle at Utah State against that up-tempo, because remember, Utah State's possession was less than Hawaii, the possession time, only by a minute or so. But when you look at how much they were able to, like how many points they were able to put up on the scoreboard, that's a testament to how efficient they are when they have the football and how quickly they move. So that's something, again, that Hawaii deals with. And then we saw it happen at Sam Houston, where Sam Houston kind of went to an up-tempo type of thing, and that's something that Hawaii struggled with on top of a lot of other things at Sam Houston. But still, that's something that I need to go look back and maybe watch some of the highlights of New Mexico and see if that's the reason why that they're able to put up so many points and be really efficient. Again, they beat Utah State, that team that puts up a lot of points, 50-45, and with the odds makers setting it at 61.5. I mean, we're looking at another high-scoring, high-powered offensive type of game, but got to play Hawaii's defense first, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking now finally at Devin Dampier's stats on the season, and if you haven't yet, save yourself the mental health. Don't, because he's another one of those dual threat quarterbacks that we seem to always struggle with. I shouldn't say that. Our defense is very, very solid, but yeah, Dampier is going to present a lot of issues for Hawaii, as he has for a lot of teams all year. So I'm really curious to see how this Hawaii defense bounces back against a guy who has been outstanding for this entire year for New Mexico. It's a good challenge and a good way for this team to end out the year and go into the offseason that has some more questions, perhaps with a few more answers.
Yeah, but I think like what you said earlier, I think fans would be excited to see if we can see a little bit more of Micah Alihado. Again, still has that red shirt preserved should he play in the game against New Mexico. And we'll find out more this week, obviously, as we continue our preview of the final game of the season and senior night, 6:00 p.m. this Saturday at the Ching Complex. That we hope to see you guys there to show up and show out. And I know there's been a lot of people wanting to support Craig Angeles in their own way as well in this final senior night, and just a day before it is set to be the last day of Craig Angeles on the job. All right, when we come back, though, we will continue just our discussion about University of Hawaii sports, but we're going to change it up and just get our thoughts on what we saw with this UH men's basketball team and how they fared against the number 10 team in the country in North Carolina. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Kule Agbayani and Paul Brecht. All right, going to talk a little bit about University of Hawaii men's basketball and let you hear from head coach Eran Ganot and a couple of players in just a second and what they had to say following that big game against North Carolina on Friday. By the way, shout out to everyone that showed up, man. It got really loud in there, and I know there were a lot of support for North Carolina. A lot of you local fans. I get it. You guys know I'm a Kansas fan, so I don't knock anyone that came out. One of those big brands of blue blood coming into town. I know there's going to be a lot of support locally for another team like that as North Carolina heads now to the Maui Invitational and gets set actually in action today. Yeah, that's right. It's already Monday. The tournament starts. Oh my gosh, it's already going on, which we'll talk about
What's the first game? 9:30, something like that. 9:30
this morning
during the show.
We'll look it up. We'll look it up. All right, but Hawaii, no surprise. You know, there were no expectations that we were going to come up with the big upset, especially because North Carolina, number 10th ranked team in the country and probably the best set of guards that we will ever see come play in the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center this year. I mean, it was incredible, high-level basketball to watch, but Hawaii falling 87-69. Made it fun, though. Kept it entertaining in the first half where Hawaii was only trailing 41-34 heading into the halftime, and then the second half, no surprise there, they were just able to pull away ever so slightly, but there were a lot of players that we got to see. You had Namiksha lead the Rainbow Warriors in scoring, putting up 16 points. And then you had Tanner Christensen with 10. With Tanner Christensen, the broadcast was funny because they were like, are they going to give him that dunk? Is it a dunk? I don't know. It's 2 points regardless, but was it a dunk? Like that. Everyone's looking for the Tanner Christensen dunk, and he wanted it, and you saw it again. This team had that grit, and they had that fight throughout this entire game, knowing that they were facing an uphill battle when it came to this North Carolina squad. Also putting up 10, Marcus Green. He was someone that I was very impressed with in terms of offensively, with not being afraid and almost playing to and attempting to play to the level of the North Carolina Tar Heels that we saw. But before we kind of break down that game a little bit more, we'll start off with Coach Ganot, and then after Coach Ganot, you'll hear from Akira Jacobs and Gides Namiksha. So here is a little bit of what head coach Eran Ganot had to say following that game on Friday.
Tough game. Give them credit. Some bright spots that we can build off of, but obviously when we were good, we were good. We were bad, we were really bad, and good teams take advantage of that. I'm very appreciative of our awesome fan base. They were incredible. And I know our kids, as always, the student athletes here, every team appreciate that. So tough out of the gates, but start the second half, really brutal. And maybe that's part of what our team needs to go through. I do believe that. And as we have some of these new faces, we had a lot of lapses in possessions, disorganization, and they took advantage of us. You beat a team 13 on the boards, a really good rebounding program, you put yourself in position. And again, took those hits, came back, cut it to 3. I think we had an open shot from Tom, which we'll take, and Akira 3. And they hit some big shots late, and we're at the end of the second half. Came out first half, got that first possession, that was really good for us. And then you saw the power of what they do when they get a miss or a turnover. And they dominated us at the rim versus what we were doing at the rim. But I'm really proud of our guys. I love our guys. We'll attack it. We'll get to work. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give them credit and thank our crowd. And back to work we go. We're not going to be okay with this. We're not going to be okay with some of the bright spots. It's not what we do. But there's nothing, experience, you've heard us say, experience, good and bad, can help you use it right. And we're going to use it. And you can't simulate some of the things they presented, but we'll see some of those at different times during the year, which will help us. I think maybe for some of the new guys, some of the crowd, maybe that was good for us to go through too. If we improve, we'll be in bigger games, and that will help us, as they have in the past. The character of our team is really good. But obviously we got work to do, and it's a great challenge.
And that was University of Hawaii men's basketball head coach Eran Ganot following their game against North Carolina on Friday. Now here's Akira Jacobs and Gides Namiksha.
Obviously, great team. We knew that coming in. We did a lot to prepare for them. And the whole coming off the bench thing, like I've said it a lot of times in a lot of these interviews, but 1 through 15, I feel like anyone can be in that lineup. Like I feel like everyone has the ability to make an impact for the team. So coming off the bench, starting, like it didn't really matter. Like whenever your number is called, like we're always ready, no matter what. But like playing against them, it's obviously a great experience. Like I said, we know they're good, but a lot of times like we beat ourselves. That's usually what ends up happening is when we beat ourselves. Like they were still a very beatable team. It's just we gotta keep working on what we messed up on.
First of all, I would like to thank our fans, and this place was really good tonight. To answer the question, yeah, that was our first time playing that good team, ranked team, and yeah, we couldn't stop them in transition, and obviously we need to work on that.
Like Gita said, like our crowd was amazing. Like it was a huge turnout. Everyone was super supportive. Like it was a loud environment. It was great to be in there, and I think just that we started off honestly awful, and it was just we needed that one energy play. And even if it wasn't ended up in a bucket, like it showed the aggression. Like we're still coming. Like we went down early. Like we threw a punch. Like we missed it, but it was something that got us going, and then we kept stacking that up. And then it was just kind of the same with both halves. We started bad first half, then came out halftime, started bad again. It's just like you got to be able to, especially with a team like of their talent. Like we have to come out like sharp. Like we can't go down. We can't put ourselves in a hole like that. Like that's a recipe for disaster.
We were just trying to play hard. I don't know, they were running Tanner, so it's easier to get a rebound, but still, I don't know, against teams like that, you just need to play as hard as you can. I mean, every team you need to just play as hard as you can. Like, and boards, like, this can help you, like, really, like, get extra possessions, which can generate, like, extra points, and that really helps, so it's just...
And I think a guy like Edis, he's on the boards every game, every practice. Like that's the energy we need for any game. It didn't really matter if we're playing North Carolina or any other team in the nation. Like it's our habits that we make, and I think Edis does something that's really good. He does in practice, and I think a lot of the team can like learn from how much he hustles on the court, practice. Just see how like it's gonna work with anyone. Like hustle, it's gonna work against anyone in the world.
And that was Akira Jacobs and Gitas Namiksha following the game against UNC. And before that, you heard from head coach Iran Gana. And I think, it's like everyone's optimistic about what they saw in that game. Again, you're not going to think that, yes, obviously positive Paul and positive Kool-Aid always want to go into a game and like, yeah, we're totally going to win. But also for the two people in the studio that watch a lot of basketball, it would take like pretty much everything to go wrong for them and everything to go right for us to come out with this win. But I do like the fact that they were able to get this experience from a top team. And then it also exposed kind of what we need to work on defensively. Like I said, for the backcourt, it's like this is the best set of guards that they will play this entire season. I mean, those guards on that North Carolina squad. Let's be honest, part of the reason why Hawai'i was able to stay in the first half was because Elliot Cadeau got into foul trouble really early. And then you see him come back in the game and you're like, whoa, what is going on? Like, this kid is amazing. By the way, you can listen to our interview on demand from last week, Thursday, with Elliot Cadeau. Me and his mom are besties now. So like, let's just say that. But
good connect to have.
Yeah, but he was just another level. And then when you got those guys in there playing together, you got RJ Davis, Seth Trimble. It's like, wow, they're amazing. And for Hawai'i, you could tell like they could not stop these guards to save their life. But again, this is the best set of guards you will ever face. But I think it puts into the mind early on in the season for our guards, right? You have someone like Cody Williams, who is normally a good defensive player, Ryan Rapp, and for them to kind of see the speed of what North Carolina brings. Now on the flip side, our front court looked really good and held their own against the North Carolina front court. I think this is maybe the middle of the pack type of front court that Hawai'i will face in the Big West Conference, but definitely they will not see a set of guards like we saw from UNC. So altogether, I think the fact that Hawai'i was still trying to push it and body their way against this North Carolina squad is, I hate this term, but in this case, I'm going to use it. It was a good moral victory for the Rainbow Warriors, just because I liked what I saw. I bring this up all the time, is that just the look on their face, like they never looked like scared. At least they wanted to take it to North Carolina. And how we always say, Paul, it's like sometimes the other team is just better. Like they're just better talent. And that's what North Carolina was. But I thought Hawaii did as much as they could do. I mean, only had 13 turnovers, so that's really good against a very feisty North Carolina team for Hawaii to do that. So I think overall, again, it was fine, except because they're North Carolina, you have to limit your turnovers because they were able to score 14 points off of those 13 Hawaii turnovers, whereas Hawaii was only able to score 5 points off of their 5 turnovers. So that, like always, is going to be something, taking care of the basketball. But all in all, collectively, I thought it was entertaining. The fans were entertained, right, throughout that entire game, and they held their own.
It was a fun night. You mentioned it. There are a few things that Hawaii was exposed on that we hadn't seen a ton of through the first 4 games. I won't say at all, because I think we did see it, and a big part of that is the penetration issues from the perimeter. Our point of attack defense needs to be better, and then from there, just defense needs to be better, and that's something that I think the team themselves would admit, where there were times that they just allowed it to be too easy for North Carolina, and you can't do that against great teams. And I don't have any issue being like, oh yeah, we got outplayed. There's the number 10 team in the nation. You know, they're top 10 team in the nation for a reason. They're going to go and compete in this Maui Invitational that has, I believe, 4 teams in the top 10, one of the best fields in the Maui Invitational's history. And, you know, you compete for the first half despite shooting 2 of 14 from long range. And I mean, that's dreadful. Like, I think you and I could hit 2 of 14 3-pointers in a single half. Like, you almost, if you took 14 half-court shots, would you be able to make 2 type thing? Like, they really just shot poorly. And outside of Akira Jacobs, he was the only one that made anything throughout that first half. And the second half, you finally start to see them come alive, but it's a little too late, right? And if you listen to the entire post-game avail, you'll hear Coach Ganat talk about, man, we just really wish we had the first 5 minutes of each half back, because Hawaii couldn't hit anything to start the game. They go down 13-2 into the first media timeout. And then in the second half, Tanner Christensen gets a dunk. And then from there, UNC opens up a 20-point lead because, like you mentioned, Elliot Cadeau, when he's out there, the Tar Heels offense just flowed so much better. They got out in transition. They finish at the rim better. They got more opportunities at the rim. He just never really panics, and that's such an important trait to have in your point guard when things do start to get hairy, because there were times that Hawaii made things hairy. Even after going down 20 in the second half there, they bring it back down by 12. Gitas Namishka has an incredibly hot stretch, bangs 2 threes in a row, gets to the free throw line. Akira Jacobs gets in on the fun, and you start to get the stand, starting the energy to build back up for the Rainbow Warriors. And then, once again, here comes Cadeau. Here comes R.J. Davis, who Davis moved into, I think, sole possession of 4th place all-time for most points in a career for UNC. It's a pretty good program, too, by the way.
Roy Williams in the house.
Shout out him who was there.
Former Kansas head coach, by the way, was the head coach of Kansas when Kansas got upset by the University of Hawaii back in the day. Just a fun fact.
True. And just in a lot of ways, you hate to lose, and that's why you heard Coach Ganat kind of turn down any, we don't want like moral victories. We're not sitting patting ourselves on the back here. And that's what I do want to hear from them. I want them, they understand that it was always going to be an uphill battle, but they also were confident going into the night. I spoke with a few of the players, a few of the coaches. It wasn't like they went there and thought, oh man, it's going to be a 25-point shellacking. They're like, if we can stick around, we got a pretty good shot. And they did. They stuck around in a lot of ways. So it's good. It was a quality performance by them. You wish that they didn't have those about 10 minutes of lapses or those 10 minutes of struggles on offense to see just how close it could have been. I'm not saying they would have upset UNC, but what if Hawaii hits 2 or 3 more threes in that first half? What if they go into halftime down only 1, down only 2 instead of down by 7? those type of hypotheticals. We'll obviously never know, but you think about that and you're like, Hawaii was in a pretty good place. Now they got to bounce back. They have HPU on Tuesday, our friends over at HPU. Excited to have that one on these airwaves. And then after that, they hit the road, and it's not any easier once you hit the road.
I know it is weird, though, looking back at that game on Friday, and just Hawaii would have had a chance to take the lead a couple of times. I mean, there were no baskets scored for the first 2.5 minutes of that game.
They were down by 3
with
a minute left in the first half.
That was weird. I was like, wow, there is 2.5 minutes. Who thought this game would have started off entirely scoreless for 2.5 minutes? And then, as we mentioned, Elliot Cadeau got into foul trouble, had to get taken out at about the 3:30 mark just to start off the game, which has kind of helped keep Hawaii in there. But like Paul said, and I can echo that. Like, I'm glad the team itself, being Coach Ganat and everyone, says there's no moral victories, because that's how they should feel. That's how it should be. Us, on the other hand, can say that
we're outside observers.
It looked good. Like, I mean, for considering who the opponent they were playing. So I think the future is bright this season for the Rainbow Warriors. And again, this is like the best backcourt that they're ever going to face this entire season. And I think the front court held their own, as we could expect. But it was nice to actually see it happen for the Rainbow Warriors. And then tomorrow, like Paul said, they play HPU, which you can hear the HPU side of the broadcast. And you can just hear our broadcast in general tomorrow night for the HPU and UH game, 7:00 p.m. It'll be Mr. Paul Brecht and myself on the call for that game, which I'm really, really excited for. But anyways, we got to step aside before we go to our break, because it'll lead us into our discussion. But someone texted in, Cal State Fullerton in the last 2 to 3 years have been middle to last place in every sport, yet former AD Jim Donovan is still the AD. Lucky for him, Lassner is not the president there.
No comment.
But it will lead us into what we were going to talk about. And someone that was in attendance, Lassner was not in attendance last week Friday at the North Carolina game, but someone that was in attendance was the AD that has been just had so much support in Craig Angeles, and everyone repping their Save Craig shirts and showing their signs on national television. So everybody that was out there and being so supportive and continue to be supportive, a shout out to you. But also that leads us into what we're going to talk about in the back half of this hour, and just bring up these Title IX issues that have been going on for a long time, and making it known to everybody that these student athletes, specifically on the track and field team, have been calling for this for an extensive amount of time. And they are adamant that things didn't change until Craig Angeles stepped in for it. So when we come back, we will get into that and what you guys need to know. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautiful list of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani. Mahalo for tuning in this and every weekday morning from 8 to 10 on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network and streaming live and watching on our YouTube channel as we are right now. So hello and a shout out to everyone watching on our YouTube channel, including our very active live chat participant, Caesar. You are the best. You're so funny. We'll get to some of your comments, but it's all fun to see with Caesar and a lot of his ideas that he has for the athletic director position. You're making me think about it, Caesar. But anyways, also another texter that talked about, we were talking about men's basketball earlier. Someone texted in on a positive note, the other better UH Wahine basketball team won 2 games over the weekend. Up next this weekend is another 3-game tournament, which includes the number 1 ranked team in the country, UCLA. Yes, if you missed the beginning of the show, we did mention that we will talk about the Rainbow Wahine basketball team in the second hour and also let people hear from what head coach Laura Beeman had to say following the game, the win against Eastern Washington yesterday, and also Melani McBee as well, and hear their post-game thoughts. But because Michael Lescaro likes to knock us for our basketball propaganda, we have to split up the conversation between men's and women's basketball, because if you haven't noticed, Paul and I can, you just give us one of those teams and we could probably talk an entire hour about the team, just one. So we have to make sure we split it up so it's not an entire show of basketball. But we are aware, so sorry that you missed the beginning of the show where we said that we will talk about Rainbow Wahine, and again in the second hour of the show before we get in trouble by Michael and he scolds us for our basketball propaganda.
We just spoke on 17 minutes about a loss for the UH men's basketball team. We will certainly be able to fill some time talking about our Rainbow Wahine, whom we have coined as nasty last year and this year disgusting. So we will. Don't you worry. We will make sure that you get your Rainbow Wahine fill for the basketball side.
But I do want to talk about something that is important when it does deal with Title IX. And I know everything with Craig Angeles has been a big deal. And I think it's a bigger deal. You guys know I've been very passionate about it. I was passionate about the decision, how everything was handled. But I think the passion for me will continue because a lot of these issues have been brought to light. And I said in the beginning of the show that if this decision is not able to be reversed, right, and we do need to kind of find a new athletics director, all of that stuff, okay, we all will have to move on, unfortunately. But at the same time, those issues that existed before Craig stepped in and helped, there are still issues that I hope will not continue to be overlooked by whoever is incoming and overlooked by the new president. And specifically, I wanted to bring up testimony via Amy Malia Warrington. She is a local girl out of Kahalu, and went to Midpack, and she was a sprinter on the track and field team. She was a 5th-year senior last season, so she is currently an alumni, but 5th-year senior. And I want to go back to this testimony actually from February. So this is something that happened back in February, and just a Board of Regents testimony with a bunch of stuff to the Board of Regents. And she had mentioned that she talks about how she's born and raised here, and this has to do with the track being displaced, so the team being displaced essentially, and because to make way to build potentially a nice bright future with the new track stadium and with soccer and everything. But the football stadium, as we know, had to take over the entire track area to build the stands and everything. So the track team got displaced. So again, this is back in February that you see, she says, part of the testimony, as I said before, you see all these things, but what you do not see is the effects that these projects have had on the student athletes that have gone ignored. The track and field team being one of the teams which has been affected since the spring of 2021, when the start of the construction of the new football stadium started making our track NCAA illegal. It is now 2024, where part of the track and field team practices at St. Louis in the mornings on Tuesdays and Saturdays when we need a full 400-meter track. On Tuesday mornings, we practice at the same time as St. Louis physical education classes are occurring. We have to practice around them, constantly being aware of where children are at play. As a sprinter myself, this is a huge concern for safety for myself, my teammates, and the children at St. Louis. When we are sprinting, it is difficult to stop or avoid contact with an individual who is in our path, which can cause a collision that can lead to serious injuries to both parties. 100%. So it's a long testimony. Again, this is back in February, trying to make her voice heard when it comes to Title IX and why the school isn't upholding this. This is to the Board of Regents and everything going on. So that is already concerning. Again, with February, she brings up even just the president's search. She talks about how when is it going to happen? 2 women's teams were affected for 1 men's team. Those same 2 women's teams that meet Title IX standards for that 1 men's team. So this has been this occurring issue for so long. And she says to end off this testimony with all of this, I want our next president to be aware of issues throughout the university, Title IX issues in the university, and committed to their students' needs. Thank you for your time. And this is the testimony to the Board of Regents, again, by Amy Malia Warrington, a sprinter who was a 5th-year senior last year. So she was alumni this year. That alone, again, they've been speaking up forever. And unfortunately, it took something that has transpired last week with the unexpected firing of athletics director Craig Angeles for all of this stuff to come to light, including for myself. And this is where the passion for me will not die in terms of making sure these student athletes are heard, because that's the part that speaks to me like tremendously about everything that's happening. So again, this was back in February. We do need to take a really, really quick break. When we come back, though, we will go through again what her testimony was. Again, she already graduated. She's an alumni. She didn't have to, just like Montserrat, another one of AKA Thor from the track and field team, submitted their testimony this time around. They didn't have to come back and speak up. Everything does not affect them right now or affect them in the future, but they're looking out for the other student athletes as well. So when we come back, I will tell you what Amy had to say when she submitted her testimony this time around to the Board of Regents last week, Thursday. And a big portion of that, she gives credit to Craig Angeles, and something that we shouldn't ignore moving forward. But we'll be right back on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, Kule Agbayani and Paul Brecht. All right, we've been talking about the Title IX situation that has affected the track and field team ever since they had to essentially start construction and get rid of the grass fields and stuff that affected the track and field team and, of course, the soccer team as well. And going through some of the testimony that was given, written testimony, and I know she had spoken publicly, and I'll get to it in just a second. And I got to look it up, and I know Michael sent us some stuff this morning, but Amy Malia Warrington, again, Kahaluu native and a mid-pack grad, and was a sprinter for the University of Hawai'i, and was a fifth-year senior last year, so she is already graduated and an alumni, but she still felt the need to submit another testimony last week, Thursday, speaking up again and bringing it to light for everyone like myself who was not aware of just how bad it was for these athletes. And again, it's different, right, Paul? Like, we talk about certain things we cover, like we're going to cover what the people want to hear more extensively. Like, we're going to talk about football, we're going to talk about basketball, soccer. We kind of force the conversation on water polo on a lot of people, but they're coverage wise, there is a certain level of popularity between sports that's given. So from a coverage standpoint, some sports are going to get more coverage than others. Fine. But when you're actually talking about the school, the institution, the student athletes, they all should be treated the same. That's their literal responsibility to make sure that these student athletes on their watch feel heard and feel taken care of. And I think that's important to point out, because I know, like, hey, like, I can't sit here and be like, we cover track and field too, but that's not our literal job to make sure that they have all of this, because we give the people what they want. But when you hear, right, like all of this stuff that has gone essentially unknown for this entire time, and they've been screaming figuratively that they've been needing this whole time, and everyone has not stepped up to offer them this. So I want to go back to her testimony this time around, and she brings up the David Lastner, and she hits the strong points for you, and I'll bring it up here on our YouTube channel as well, that she talks about. So she's, again, this is writing as an alumni, and she says, out of my 5 years there, speaking of the University of Hawaii, I only felt cared about by the athletics department in my fifth, which is the year he, Craig Angeles, became the AD. I'm not the only athlete who voiced that to the athletic department. Firing someone who made positive changes, fixed major issues that were caused by others before him, and actually spoke with his athletes, knew their names, and genuinely cared about them is not right. And that's the part that we are, like, I especially am very adamant about, that this seems like someone, Craig does, someone that genuinely cares not only about the student athletes, but also the fans. I know he's reached out to fans to thank them for donations and everything. He talks to fans. He answers emails. Like, it might take some time because he's very busy, but he'll answer emails, he'll answer text messages. He's very much somebody that is aware and wants to look out for the student athletes and the fans. Now, her testimony does mention a little bit about how they haven't been able to meet. I do want to bring up this one thing. I don't want to. She does bring up Lois Mannon in here. I don't want to harp too much on Lois, simply because to maintain our journalistic integrity, we have not reached out to the university for comment, or to Lois. So I don't want to completely harp on that, because I don't think it's fair to not get a kind of like a statement about this and completely be one-sided. But I think it's important to note that she does mention that she tried to bring up her voice back, like in a Zoom meeting in the summer of 2021 with herself, a few of the teammates, the coaches, and those same people, including Lois Mannon, where we voiced these same concerns, in which they responded with, "We would keep in contact with you. Out of the trust that the athletic department lost from me due to previous lies and hiding details, I asked them how we can trust you, that you will be in contact with us, because that has not been the case." Their response was, "We will." They didn't, though. And that's what she said. And then she brings up Craig again. But Craig Angeles changed that when he came in. I stated, quote, "When Mr. Angeles came in, we had a rough start, but he listened. He wanted us to speak up, let us ask all the questions we wanted, and work towards solutions together with us. On March 17th, 2024, Craig Angeles gave us the chance to speak to him and Lois Mannon, Lois for the first time since the 2021 meeting, in which myself, One of my teammates, my coaches, our sports supervisor, Jim Stein, Craig Angelis, and Lois Mannon met less than an hour before we had to leave for the airport for an away meet. Thanks to Craig Angelis, who made this happen one way or another when others weren't able to, or I should say did not want to. So with this information, are you going to truly sit there, this is speaking again to the Board of Regents, and tell the public that you work for the student athletes and work diligently with students, but then go ahead and fire Craig Angelis, the positive change that was brought to the athletic department? Let that sink in, everybody. Like, again, reading her testimony back from February and then reading it this time around, that it has changed that much. And again, it's not like he came in here, he got hired last summer, not like he came in here and was like, oh, I'm going to work on all this stuff. But to see him have that trickle down effect where, all right, I know the first couple months he just spent kind of getting to know everybody and getting a lay of the land and everything like that. And then slowly started to get to all of these issues that have been affecting the programs that, again, they felt like from 2021, nobody was responding to them. Craig Angelis comes in within a year that he's been on the job, was able to make some type of positive change. I mean, and I think that's the important thing. Again, I don't want to harp too much on the Lois situation because I don't think it's fair from a journalistic standpoint, not getting that side of the story. This is more about the athletes feeling like they are, again, cared for and seen and heard by Craig Angelis. And I don't understand why that is not being talked about by the president, by the Board of Regents, why that seems to not matter to them at all.
We hear Laura Beeman talk a lot about feel good, play good, right? Part of feeling good is comfort and belief that the people who are supposed to be looking out for you are looking out for you. And if that's the case, wouldn't the guy as athletic director who is checking in, who is listening, making these student athletes feel heard, making them feel more comfortable? We've seen a lot of success in the Hawai'i athletic program, or programs, I should say, over the last 18 months. And before then, too, but really over the last 18 months, it feels like all I do is talk about this team won another Big West championship, this team won another Big West championship, this team undefeated through this stretch, and this, that, all these great things. Doesn't that come from having comfort within your athletic department and whatnot? So in a way, I sit here and I'm like, oh, Craig Angelis's performance is even better than what we thought, because now you take into account the mental aspect of what that comfort of having somebody who actually will listen to you as a student athlete brings, and the ability to go and understand that you should just be able to go worry about your studies and worry about your practice rather than have to worry about, well, where are we going to practice today? Are we going to practice today? Do we have a place? Do we have all the same opportunities? Oh, this broke. I wonder how many months it's going to take for this to get fixed. When all those things change, you're able to compete at the top level that you can. I'll continue to echo how disappointing this decision was, is, and continues to be by the University of Hawaii.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will likely continue some of this conversation. Be sure to text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. Coming up in hour number 2, we'll go back to, again, continue this, go back to some football conversation as well. And yes, our University of Hawaii women's basketball takeaways after this weekend, and look ahead to facing the number 1 team in the nation this week, UCLA, coming into town. Hope you guys are going to come out and get loud, but we'll talk about all of that and a lot more next on, or hour number 2 on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, hour number 2. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. Woo! On this Monday. Happy Aloha Monday. Mahalo for tuning in this and every weekday morning from 8 to 10 and watching as you are right now on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Coming up in this hour, we will actually continue our conversation that we left off with the first hour, being some of the testimonies and Title IX issues that have been going on at the University of Hawaii and haven't been addressed and remedied since Craig Angeles started paying attention and had done things that nobody has been able to do since 2021. So we'll fill you in on that in a little bit. Also coming up, we will get into some University of Hawaii women's basketball, a conversation and recap the games that happened over the weekend, and also look ahead to a really big weekend for the Rainbow Wahine coming up this week as they will welcome in a couple of teams, most importantly, the number 1 team in the country, as we just released in the AP poll, in UCLA, who upset the number 1 or the previous number 1 team and defending national champs, South Carolina.
Also want to say hello to everybody who's tuned in online, by the way.
I was getting there.
Just
Paul
because,
wanted to steal my thunder.
Yeah, well, listen, if you want to take it, you take it, because I was just excited about our friend in Australia who has said hello. Alex, good morning to you as well.
Just for Paul's proof, I was getting there.
Both Ku'ulei and I are on the YouTube now. Just for a look behind the scenes, we are not always checking the comments because we are keeping multiple tabs open. But every time that we do try and give you guys a shout out. So shout out to you, Alex. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, shout out to you, Caesar. Thank you for always tuning in and giving us a smile on a Monday.
Before we get into, I got to read Caesar's comments for you guys just to have a laugh to start off our number 2 as we segue back into our things we were talking about to end off the last hour. And again, hello and aloha to Alex in Australia. He said it's 5:34 a.m. tomorrow, so Tuesday in Australia. But thank you for being up early and tuning in on our YouTube. And yes, Caesar on Maui. So Caesar, obviously, like with all the UHAD stuff going on, and he's been very vocal on our YouTube and talks about, he said, I heard Keith Amemiya is seriously in the running for a new UHAD. I was only kidding when I endorsed him. If I had that much influence, I would have endorsed Ku, thank you, as new UH Manoa AD. She'd be a much better candidate than Amemiya. I appreciate you, Caesar, but I'm not afraid to say I might be a better candidate than Amemiya, but as I keep talking about, like with Craig, I would not want to fill those shoes of Craig Angeles, because how much he's able and all the connections he has nationally, that's a big deal as well. So probably I was like, Keith, I would probably run against you, Keith, but I would not want to fill the shoes of Craig Angeles, because that man has been able to do so much and like has all the connections. Caesar also saying it is what it is, though. Like I mentioned before, I'd much rather have Keith Amemiya as AD than in political office. Our state has enough problems already. Keep Amemiya far away from government. Caesar, you're. But it's just funny. Again, I want to start off hour number 2 on a light note. I know I got very passionate and emotional, and I'll continue to get passionate and emotional about this topic, but it's always fun to have a little chuckle at this and stuff. And then Caesar also says, I don't know what Craig Angeles' next move is, but if he decides to pursue a position in political office, I'd endorse him and be his campaign manager. 100% free Nike gear for whoever votes for him. LOL. We're hoping to get free Nike gear this time around, and that's another. We'll talk about that in just a second, because that's something that we broke towards the ending of Friday's show. More information had come out Friday afternoon, so that is actually something that we do need to get to when it comes to the Nike deal and potentially the fallout. And Hawaii might have to go back to either Adidas or Under Armour or who knows, but just the, I guess the Nike deal potentially being in jeopardy, because to remind everyone, it's close. It was close to being a done deal, but the actual signature on the paper to make it final has not happened yet as far as we know. But also, so I want to go back to what we were talking about with the track and field team and not being able to get the proper attention that they deserve. And again, when it comes to, covering sports on the radio or on television and everything like that, we get it. Like some of the fans are wanting to hear more about volleyball and basketball and football, of course. And it's our job as media to give the fans what they want, right? We'll talk about more sports that are more popular to the listener. But at the same time, that shouldn't be the same that happens on campus. And when you hear about how much the track and field team has to endure, and with Title IX being as prominent as it is and how it should be, you need to hold the university accountable for the lack of care for the other sports. It is their job to make sure that these sports are seen and heard and cared about. But as Amy Warrington had said, the team didn't feel cared about until Craig Angeles was the one that stepped in. Again, since 2021, they didn't feel like they were heard. Craig comes in, less than a year on the job, makes things happen. And that's why these athletes are speaking out in support of him. Not just Amy Warrington, but we also heard from Jess McKenzie on the track team, and also Montserrat Montanez Iarbo that has been very vocal. And this isn't something, I want to remind everyone that this isn't something that they have been, it's like, oh, their friends and student athletes just wanted to come about and say, hey, let's do this to the Board of Regents just this one time only. They have been saying all these testimonies long before we were even aware of all this stuff going on. I want to bring up our Michael Liscaro kind of texting us this morning, and I didn't get a chance to read through everything yet, but I want to go through some of the things he pointed out, because I joked with him. I was like, you can't send me all this information right before we jump on air, because I like to dive in myself, so that way I can portray it fairly and to the best of my knowledge to all of you guys listening and watching. But one thing that was funny is during when President Lassner was talking about the YPO soccer complex with the soccer team hosting Big West and all that stuff, he referred to YPO soccer complex as within the Patsy Mink Central Oahu Regional Park last month. That is how much he cares about women's sports and Title IX, apparently, because as we know, Patsy Mink was the one that spearheaded Title IX, and the Central Oahu Regional Park that is located in YPO Gentry area is named after her. And YPO Soccer Stadium is not in YPO Gentry, but it is behind. It's called YPO because that is the YPO Peninsula. It is behind Maipahu High School. So President David Lassner doesn't even know the difference between YPO Soccer Stadium and the Patsy Mink Central Oahu Regional Park. So that should tell you all you need to know about how much he cares about sports, women's sports, because as we know, soccer is only the women's sport only for the University of Hawaii. And yeah, that doesn't say enough. So Michael found that video clip. I did share it on my Twitter if you guys want to see it. Also a testimony from Montserrat again back in February, and Amy Warrington. Apparently their recordings from March of 2024, again, speaking out, wasn't recorded, allegedly. That's how Michael worded it. Montserrat, I didn't get to listen to this, but she does mention, again, this is from April 2024. She mentioned Craig's improvements to the Title IX situation, calls out the missing recording of their March testimony, demands to see missing Title IX reports, again, missing, says the mess isn't Craig's fault, calls on Lois Mannon's position as senior women administrator. So again, this is more about Craig instead of harping on Lois, because we haven't tried to reach out for comment or anything about these pushbacks from the track team. But nonetheless, they're speaking up in support of Craig and yelling from the sky. And this part broke my heart when going back to Amy's testimony, where she talked about, I don't need to retell my story, as you all, including David Lassner himself, have heard me and watched the tears roll down my face as I beg to not let history repeat itself, but let's set the record straight before Lois takes over as the new interim athletic director and before the new president takes their position. Before Mr. Angeles came in, all the issues that I've shared to you all were brought up to the same people in the department who hold these positions. But she goes on and again continues that none of it were even remedied or attempted to be remedied before Craig Angeles stepped in and to help these young student athletes, these young women feel heard, cared about, and fix these problems. And I will keep continuing to fight and continue to give them a voice, because that is just not right. And that is why I refuse to accept the termination of Craig Angeles based on performance when we haven't seen any type of performance report or anything. He brought up the 360 reviews, but that's all by staff. I mean, what about the student athletes? So you're going to take into account the feelings of the staff. Again, this is before we know any extreme wrongdoing, right? We always say that. If it comes out there that there was like blatant wrongdoing and he completely it was more than just management style. It was bigger than that. This will be a very different story, but we haven't heard anything like that. So we are going to continue to believe in Craig Angeles' testimony that he acted in good faith all the time and ran the athletics department. So with that being said, you're going to take into account maybe his management style and how much the staff complained more than you're actually going to care about your student athletes. Like that to me, like how do you sit with yourself as the president and don't look out for the student athletes and essentially let the staff and employees run things and not look at all the progress that Craig Angeles has done. And you're just willing to, it's a slap in the face to all these student athletes who are speaking up, and from a sport that doesn't get much coverage in track and field to men's volleyball national champions, where they were the ones passing out the Save Craig shirts. So from the sport that has the least amount of coverage to one of the top sports at the university, you have student athletes from all across the sports speaking out, and you refuse to give them answers, give the public answers, where they're all speaking in support of Craig Angeles, and then you make this move. This is why it'll continue to be a topic that I bring up, because to treat the student athletes like this is just, it's wrong, and it can't go ignored any longer.
I am going to pitch a theory. And that theory is that they don't actually care about the student athletes. And I'm not saying the coaching staffs or any of them, but those in the athletic department, or perhaps just all the way to the top, because I don't like to throw people who I don't know under the bus. But how about David Lassner? Maybe he just doesn't care about the student athletes because he believes they're replaceable. I mean, let's think about it in a sense like that, right? Every 4 years or so, and COVID has changed things a little bit, but every 4 years, I mean, those athletes leave, and you get a new set of athletes. And then you just kind of rinse and repeat. Why should you have to care about people who are going to leave anyway? Why, he cares about the people who are going to just remain here and keep things the status quo, right? He doesn't have to make any movement with those people. But when they complain, he does have to listen to them because he has made his decision to keep things stale, to keep things complacent, to keep things stagnant. Perhaps he just doesn't actually care about the student athletes. And I don't mean that in like, I hope you die. No, obviously not, guys. But, I mean, by all the evidence racking up, this isn't the first time students have spoken out against David Lassner's decision. He doesn't know where the hell the soccer team plays, or doesn't know where the softball team plays. One or the other. I'm not totally sure. Doesn't care enough to know where all the sports play, doesn't care enough that multiple times he has been ripped up and down by these same student athletes, that the people in the department that he chooses to back continue to get ripped up and down by the student athletes, because those student athletes won't be here in 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and they don't have to care, because new ones will come in. And new athletes, student athletes, will be enamored by how Hawaii is Hawaii and how great the weather is and how there are beaches and, the coaches are great and we have such a great culture. And all of those things are true, but there is so much more to that so much more to college sports than just those things. And I don't necessarily think, theoretically, David Lassner cares in that sense. So, the whole thing has been disappointing. We've said that over and over again. We're beating a dead horse at this point in terms of stating the disappointment. What I find intriguing at this point is that there continues to be more and more evidence that is racked up over the years that this is not something we should be surprised that David Lassner did. And I guess in that sense, I mean, we only have ourselves to blame for not seeing it coming, because this is a guy who beats to his own drum. He has before, and he does what he thinks is best for the university, which, to be fair, I guess is the job. But also, it's good to get the input of, the actual community that you are supposed to be leading. And he doesn't seem to really care about that.
Yeah, and it's not even speculation at this point. It's cold hard facts that these student athletes didn't feel cared about. And again, Amy and Montserrat, they aren't part of the team anymore this season. They are alumni. Montserrat chiming in from Spain and Amy submitting her testimony. They care more about the future of the student athletes than David Lassner does. Obviously, they didn't have to come in and still speak up this time around last week, Thursday. They're gone. They're done with the University of Hawaii. They could have said we don't care. It's not our problem anymore. And for those student athletes to continue to speak up and be vocal clearly shows that there's a problem and they want to instill change, which is why I want to keep bringing it up to all of you beautiful people to make everybody aware of just how dramatic and how crazy the problem is and how much Craig Angeles has helped these student athletes feel cared about and heard. Only when he came in, within a year of him being on the job, they instantly felt like, oh, wow. This is how it was supposed to feel this entire time. All right, going to step aside. When we come back, though, we will change it up and we will get into some University of Hawaii women's basketball conversation. Woo-woo! Man, they're looking good, y'all. A little shaky in the third quarter, but nonetheless, look at that depth. And this year's term is, what is it, Paul? Disgusting. Last year was nasty. This year's term is disgusting.
They've evolved.
I know for all of our young at heart listeners, they're like, isn't disgusting a bad word? It's the slang.
No.
Disgusting. It's very, very good. All right, we'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht are going to talk some Rainbow Wahine basketball now as the ladies improve to 3-1 on the season as they get ready for a big weekend coming up in the American Savings Bank Rainbow Wahine Showdown, hosting a few teams or playing a few games at the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center. But before we kind of get into that, I want to go back on the Bank of Hawaii Classic that we saw over the weekend on Friday, getting a 69-64 win over Louisiana Monroe. And then yesterday, getting that win against Eastern Washington, 67-55. And they look good. I mean, for lack of a better term, I mean, the depth on this team, which it's not like Paul and I haven't been saying that ever since they started, like to bring in people and everything like that. But you have to actually see it play out, right? And see the different rotations that go in and see what has been kind of the surprise with Deja Phillips starting now instead of coming off the bench because Laura Beeman said so. It's like, you're not coming off the bench anymore until maybe something happens. But other than that, you see Deja Phillips coming in there. The game against Eastern Washington, you saw Meilani McBee hit a couple of, or quite a few threes, but even an interesting one where she kind of did a move and like went off of 1 foot, and you're like, did she really
which
just
she
hit
practices,
that?
we were told.
Exactly, which I do have that where people will hear in just a second. But coming out with the big win, looked really good. Again, in the third quarter, and this is what Mike told me also, it looked similar to the Louisiana Monroe game where it's something coming out of the half or something. That third quarter needs to be figured out a little bit. Other than that, I mean, they just looked really, really good. All right, but before we give you even more thoughts on what we saw from that game, here is what head coach Laura Beeman, just a snippet of what Laura Beeman had to say, and also Meilani McBee following that win yesterday against Eastern Washington.
I think it was a great weekend for us. We're still trying to figure out lineups and, still trying to figure out how to have consistent execution following the scout. And I think that we're figuring it out pretty quickly. It's great to play 9 people double-digit minutes. And it's great that when, there's a lot of attention on one player, someone else can step up. I thought Brooke Rose had a great game today on the boards. I thought Amani did some really good stuff underneath, getting a little bit more physical, getting to the basket. Vittoria is going to continue to draw a lot of attention, and I think she did today. And when she draws that kind of attention, it opens up other people. Obviously, May hit some big shots down the stretch. Lily put us in a great position, leading the team, hitting shots. 4 assists, 1 turnover, 9 points, 8 rebounds. That's pretty significant. So, when we can get that kind of productivity across the board, it's going to be really good for us. And we've got a lot of youngsters that are very good, and I know they're disappointed with not getting playing time. Our goal is to get them on the court because you never know when you're going to need them. So I think we're a team that can share a lot of minutes, and the plan is just to continue to get better. But overall, very good weekend for this group. We had 14 turnovers on Friday. It led to 20 points. Rebounding was a little bit more sketchy at times against Monroe. I thought today we did a really good job of limiting their offensive boards. We're still turning. 11 turnovers isn't a lot, but we're allowing those turnovers to lead to points, and we've got to figure that out, and that's on us coaches to figure out why we're not transitioning back and getting into a better disadvantage defense type situation. So we're going to figure that out before next weekend. But I thought the attention to detail in those 2 areas was noticeable.
And Coach, you kind of talked about the young players on the team, and how good is it to have one of your best players like Deja Phillips at the end of the first half come up with that steal, dive on the ground, create that extra possession that ends up leading to Meilani's second 3?
That's what Deja's supposed to do and does do, and she takes a lot of pride in coming up with, if you remember Friday, that huge rebound off of a missed free throw offensively for us, right? That's what Deja does, and I think it's going to become more and more contagious with this group because they see how hard she works and it goes unnoticed in the stats. But I think that when she starts getting us going, then all of a sudden May's shooting the gaps, and Amani's getting a deflection or a back tip or a big block, and I just think that the energy that Deja brings, she always makes the big play at the right time, and if we can get a few more people doing that, then I think it's very encouraging and positive for us. I thought Deja's weekend was incredible because she guarded the best player on the court both games.
Meilani, you must have really enjoyed that sequence at the end of the first half. What was it like, hitting those 2 threes in such a short amount of time?
It was just like practice. I practiced them all the time, so it wasn't anything special.
She does
It really
practice
wasn't.
that footwork.
I practiced that footwork all the time with Alex.
She's going to get hot closeouts, so she has to be a little bit more savvy and allow herself to get a shot off when it's 3-2-1 because we don't want to not get a shot off. And so she has worked a lot of that footwork because she's going to get the hot closeout, and it's either going to put her at the free throw line or she's going to give us a chance to go in with really good momentum. She did that today.
For you, Meilani, you end the zone shooting those 3 pointers. just what continues to keep your confidence going, and is there a player that you look up to that idolize your game?
There's no one I really idolize. I think if anything, I just put myself in that expectation to want to do better and want to get more out of what I'm doing on the court. If anything, my teammates got my back all the time, even my coaches. They're always encouraging me to shoot the ball more, and I need to do that. So that's my role on the team.
That was a good answer, and that was Meilani McBee, and also head coach for the Rainbow Wahine basketball team, Laura Beeman, following yesterday's win against Eastern Washington to improve to 3-1, and Meilani hitting 4 of her threes for those team high 12 points, and including, you heard that question get asked, does you practice that or what with the 3-point? Because if you guys missed it, it was pretty cool. She just kind of went off the dribble 1 foot and then made that 3, and it was really beautiful. But I guess she does practice it. And you know what? We talk about situations in every single game. We talk about situational football ad nauseum. But I mean, hey, that's the ultimate situational basketball, I guess, is trying to make sure you can get comfortable with those shots when the shot clock is running down. And it's paying off, because there you go, Meilani McBee, again, leading the team with 12, Imani Perez with 11, Lili Wahine Kapu, 11. Brooklyn Brewers had a good game, 9 points off the bench, but all around, and we see Vittorio Tamillo, and a lot of it too, though. I mean, there were some bunnies that were missed, but they're just their ability to just have really easy shots underneath the basket with their length that they have and how the speed that which they can move. I mean, we talked about Imani a lot last year and her ability to be able to hit outside shots as well, and even Brooklyn can if she wants to pull the trigger. So just the depth that this team has, and we saw it this weekend, and it was very beautiful basketball to watch. And I'm excited for the future of this Rainbow Wahine basketball team.
As you should be. I mean, they are a fun group. They're a deep group in a lot of ways. We talked a lot about it in the post game with Coach Beeman. The size that Hawaii brings is very, very unique, where you have the ability to go to a Vittorio Tamillo, who was on the all-tournament team at the end of the night, but didn't necessarily have a great game by what her standards have been the first few games, right? It's the first time she didn't score double digits in her college career, which is funny enough to say about a true freshman. Then you go and you're able to go to a Brooklyn Brewers who has experience starting, has experience playing heavy minutes. She comes off the bench and gives you an incredibly physical presence, I want to say, where down low, Eastern Washington had some beef, right? Some muscle down low that could typically present some issues to other teams. But with Tamillo being a little bit off, and obviously Imani Perez, you don't want to get into foul trouble. You bring in Brooklyn Brewers, who understands how to play that physical brand of basketball without picking up foul after foul after foul after foul. And she's able to give you something offensively as well, able to knock down triples, able to go down low, finish a couple of times. She gave you, I think, 7 rebounds in this one as well. It was a great performance for her off the bench, and what a luxury that is for Hawaii. And then someone else that you just can't talk about the Rainbow Wahine without bringing up is Lili Wahine Kapu. She was the MVP of the entire tournament, and deservedly so. She does everything. There's jack of all trades, master of none. No, she's a jack of all trades. Sure, she's a master of them all. It's incredible what she's able to do out there for Hawaii, leading the fast break especially. I tweeted about it, where she is incredibly impressive when it comes to looking off where she wants to go. She delivered a beautiful no-look pass to Imani Perez on the break, and she does it in multiple ways, right? She doesn't always look for the layup that's underneath the basket in transitions. She's very good at distributing, seeing where the offense flows, where the transition is flowing to. If she has an option into the left corner, into the right corner, able to pull it back, hesitation dribble, and then go. Now she'll drop it off here. Oh, she's going to take it herself now. She can pull up for 3, right? The versatility of what Lili Wahine Kapu does and is able to be for Hawaii is really kind of what makes them so dangerous. And I'm curious what happens when you lose her, when you lose Deja, when you lose all these seniors, obviously. That's an issue for another day. There's a lot of young talent on this team who they're able to now sit and watch these young women play in big moments, see them take over the game, because this was one that got way, way closer in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, Hawaii able to open up a double-digit lead once again, comfortably win it at the end of the day, and win the overall tournament title. This is a really good basketball team, and one that has gotten results through their first 4 games, pardon me. But now the tests are really about to come, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
Louisiana Monroe is a good team. Eastern Washington, good team. Portland is a very good team. None of them compare to the opponent you have coming in this Sunday in UCLA, the number 1 team in the nation now in today's new AP poll. And on top of that, a solid Fresno State team and a solid UT Martin program. You have to be on your P's and Q's. And it looks like they are in a lot of ways. They got to figure things out in the third quarter. That's also something that's been a conversation for them dating back all the way to the exhibitions.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That third quarter, to see back home, their first couple of home games, that they still, because things that happen on the road, right, and in exhibitions, you can take it how you must. But like to see that happen at home for these couple of games was something that's kind of interesting, and I'm curious. I believe we should get like a media avail with Coach Beeman this week, which would be an interesting question to ask and something they need to figure out. I know one thing in practice that they worked on a lot, where there was their turnovers and their rebounding. Something that that stood out to me a little bit. Well, on a positive note, something that stood out to me defensively was it just me, or did it seem like they forced a lot of tie-ups defensively yesterday?
Yeah,
and I was like,
amount of jump balls.
yeah, I was like, you know what? Like just the timing to kind of reach in at the right time and just being that aggressive, but at the same time not not making any fouls or anything. So I thought that was impressive. But also on the flip side, defensively, I don't know what it is, and obviously like the coaches in the room are a lot smarter than I am when it comes to figuring out the game plan, but just being able to, it almost seemed too easy for the Eastern Washington team to score in the paint, where you would imagine that we have a solid defense and really good size, because it's not like they had like a Vittoria on their team, right? They still had good size in the paint, but able to score 24 points in the paint. But it's more of just their ability to kind of like find those bounce passes and open passes and drive to the basket. I think is something that I want to see get better throughout, because again, Eastern Washington, solid team, but they're not going to be like the best team Hawaii faces this year. So being that offensively we have a lot of that talent, being able to be there in the front court, I want to see how it'll improve on the defensive side of everything. So that's kind of one thing that I want to see as this season goes on. And like we said, more opponents coming in where you can't afford to give up that many points in the paint if you're going to play when you have the talent in the front court that you do and the size that you do, and also not taking, I don't want to say this, not taking the quarter off, but just not being able to start slow in that third quarter and let teams chip away at the 20-point lead that you built, and then see that third quarter and it shrink down. Because when you look at that final score, right, of the Louisiana Monroe game, Hawaii winning 69-64, but when you watch that game, Hawaii was definitely a way better team than Louisiana Monroe.
Through 3.5 quarters, you could clearly see that, but it was that half a quarter, right? Is that half of the third that brings the team's confidence back. And then from there, if they're just able to play even basketball with you, it's a completely different game, because you see it, 8-0 run, 9-0 run, 10-0 run. Those change things. We saw it in the men's game a couple of times. So the women just a little bit better at giving themselves some cushion first before seeing those lulls.
Yeah, so again, big weekend this weekend coming up in the American Savings Bank Rainbow Wahine Showdown this Friday, 2:30 p.m., hosting Fresno State, and then Saturday's game, 2:30 p.m. So a nice, fun, long day for UH fans with the basketball game earlier, and then we got senior night for football, but they play UT Martin on Saturday, and then Sunday is the big one. So should Hawaii come out with wins against Fresno State and UT Martin, man, that UCLA game even more so. Number 1 team in the country, according to the newest AP poll this week, in the UCLA Bruins this Sunday, 2:30 p.m. So we hope to see you guys out there this weekend, and especially that Sunday game, man. We got to get loud and support the Rainbow Wahine basketball team. Anywho, way up against the clock. So we'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
hydration.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Mahalo for tuning in this and every weekday morning on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. And of course, watching live on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. And we appreciate all of you guys that tune in, and you can listen on demand. You can text us if you want and get in on the conversation. But yeah, I can't believe it's already flying by this first couple of hours on this Monday. And we will definitely get into more football talk in the next couple of, we got a short week this week. That's right. Short week for you guys. So only a few days that we will have with you, as we hope everyone is going to enjoy their Thanksgiving and Black Friday. We will be obviously covering sports. There's a lot of football games. There's the usual Thanksgiving triple header in the NFL. Yes, it's Thanksgiving this week, Paul.
You were like, short week. I'm like, for what? I'm like, what are you talking about? Thanksgiving, dummy. I had no idea. I just bebopping around. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you know.
Oh, yeah. Paul, we only had the show for 3 days this week.
What am I supposed to do with myself on Thursday and Friday?
Well, there's NFL all day on Thursday, and Friday we got some basketball.
Snooze fest that is NFL football on Thanksgiving this year. Oh my gosh,
we got football on Friday, and of course basketball on Friday, and the football that's going on. Friday. So there's stuff to do on Friday.
Actually, that's not true. My wife's already said she's gonna do some very nice spread, and I'll be fat, dumb, and happy and asleep on the couch.
That you almost forgot about.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. I would have been home one way or another. I just would have been confused like she was on.
What is all this food that you're cooking?
Dang, you're really putting it on today, aren't you? You're good job. Thanks, honey. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. I'm thankful for you. Thank you very much.
So thankful for you.
It's okay. It's okay to forget about Thanksgiving. It's as long as it's not like your birthday or when your first
birthday. It's not
anniversaries.
As Thanksgiving, whatever. And Christmas is always the same day, so that's easy enough for me. She loves Christmas. She likes Thanksgiving. She loves Christmas though. So I got the three important ones, guys. That's important to you, all you young gentlemen.
All right, Paul. So remember, don't show up to the studio this Thursday and Friday. I will not be here.
I might need another text. I'm not going to lie to you.
I will not be here this morning, and you'll be like, wow, where's texting me? Like, where's Kool-Aid? I'm like,
God.
I'm sleeping in on Thanksgiving, getting ready for the long weekend. But something going on this weekend, or will happen over the weekend, that I want to make sure we fill you guys in on in case you missed it, because it's happening this Friday, which is something that we are covering with the HHSA state football tournament going on right now. And if you missed it over the weekend, the semifinals of Division 1, we will start with Konowaina beating Lelehua 45-20, and then Kapa'a beating Damien 55-33. So it will be an all neighbor island championship for Division 1 between the number 1 seed Konowaina and number 3 seed Kapa'a. That game will be at 7:30 p.m. at Mililani High School, and you can also watch it via our friends at Spectrum OC16. And when you take a look at the Division 2 side, another one as well. Oh, wait. Whoops.
Oops.
Sorry, I messed up on the YouTube, but nonetheless, I messed up on the YouTube, but I had put up the Division 1 graphic and was talking, or Division 2 graphic, and I was talking about Division 1. But here we go. I'll make it opposite. So sorry about that if you're confused watching it. But for our radio friends and audio friends, Division 2, we have Kamehameha Schools Maui that beat Roosevelt 60-26.
Whoa.
And then on the other semifinal, number 2 seed Kauai falling to Oahu's Kaiser 16-13.
The Beasts of the East.
Yeah. Cougar Nation domination.
Shout out Andrew Choi.
So it will be number 1 seed Kamehameha Schools Maui and Kaiser for the Division 2 state championship. So that game will be at 4:00 p.m. at Mililani High School as well, and then followed by the Division 1 game between Konowaina and Kapa'a. And of course, So those two Friday night doubleheader, and then the Open Division didn't play since last week, but that will be the big juggernaut matchup again on Friday. That's right, that was Friday too. I was like, on Friday? Gosh.
There's what I'm doing Friday.
There's what you're doing. That's Paul and I, and then Michael's out at Mililani. There we go. That's all of our coverage. So Friday. So Saturday is a championship. Saturday is a championship for Division 1 and Division 2 at Mililani High School. Friday is the Open Division state championship between Kahuku and St. Louis at the TC Ching Complex. So
Glad
my
it's
apologies.
two teams who have never made it for the Open Division.
Yeah, it's a brand new matchup that we've never seen before.
This one before.
But no, number one, Kahuku and St. Louis. And, Kahuku had a lot to, got to prove the scoring live power rankings wrong and getting their new quarterback in
Which
Matai
we
Fuyava.
do not vote on, by the way. Ku'ule and I, don't take your anger out on us.
Yeah.
We don't vote on those.
And then St. Louis.
Somebody else in the studio, normally on Mondays, might, but that's not us.
Yeah, see, Mililani. Michael. So Michael's texting us right now. I got not confused, but misread everything. So yes, Michael, you are with us at UH on Friday. I was looking at that it would have been on the same day. So discard the days that I said. So to have it correct for everybody, Friday is the Open Division State Tournament Championship between Kahuku and St. Louis at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex. And then Saturday is the doubleheader between Kamehameha Schools Maui and Kaiser in Division 2. That game at 4 o'clock p.m. And then in Division 1, it'll be the all Neighbor Island matchup between Konowaina and Kapa'a at 7:30 p.m. at Mililani High School on Saturday. So Open Division Friday and Division 1, Division 2 on Saturday. But also, as we know, there is the UH game going on as well. All right. Hope everyone's on the same page now. I apologize. There's just all of these things and putting up the YouTube graphics and all of that stuff. Anywho, other stuff going on this week. We're back. Other stuff going on in this short week. Just tipping off is the Maui Invitational presented by, what is it, like Novavax or something? I don't know.
Novavax.
Yeah. Maui Invitational happening right now in Lahaina. It returns
Presented
to
by
its
the
home.
Spirit of Bill Walton.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that one.
Shout out Bill.
Bill Walton.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, there you go. I like that one. So right now is Memphis and UConn. Later on this afternoon at tip-off time set for 12 o'clock p.m. is Colorado and Michigan State. And then on the other side of the bracket, you have Auburn and Iowa State. And then 6:30 tonight, you have Dayton and North Carolina. There you go. Dayton, North Carolina playing each other. Maybe, I don't know, the ghost of Steph Curry being on Dayton can help with dealing with those guards on the North Carolina squad. I don't know.
We were talking about this in the post game in the green room after the UNC Hawaii game on Friday. It should be a much more normal thing for teams who are coming here for the Maui to schedule UH as like a team to get your body used to like the schedule. It's a great way for Hawaii to improve their resume every single year in some way, shape, or form. You don't always have to play a top 10 nationally ranked team, guys. I think it would be fun. I think it would be really fun, and it's a good way for teams to adjust to what is a very significant time difference oftentimes, especially those East Coast teams. Speaking from experience, it can take like 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes even up to a week to really get your sleep schedule right. So I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I think we should see it more often.
I just selfishly, from a fan perspective, 100%. Like, I don't care if those teams want to get their body acclimated to the time change. I'm like, from a fan, like, I know everyone wants to see these big time teams come out, right? Like, imagine, because every few years it circulates between North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, your like blue bloods.
You
so
get all the blue bloods.
Can you imagine Hawaii playing at least one
Just a
blue blood
rotating
like
blue
every?
blood
Oh my
each year.
gosh! Oh my gosh! My
fun.
basketball heart would be so happy.
And it'd be so good for Hawaii's scheduling, which I do know a lot of people are worried about oftentimes with the non-conference. It's a great way to improve your resume with those schools. I mean, a lot of times these are the these are the schools that work with Nike a lot of times, right? These are the schools who are at the top of the list. These are the schools that are always in the news, and not for the wrong reasons, right? Because they're winning. So I I would love to see it happen more often just going forward, even Air Jordan's fine, it's just kind of it's an arm off of it. It's just, I would like to see it going forward.
Look at Paul. I love it. I love how we're kind of in the same page with the transition there, that perfectly teeing it up to end the show. I like it. I like it.
Okay.
So if you guys didn't catch the hint there, that was a good transition into what we want to finish off with. Ironically, what we finished off the show with on Friday, breaking the news that the Nike deal and the University of Hawaii could be in jeopardy with Craig Angeles being fired by the athletics department, and of course David Lassner, with still no details and details pending. So we talked about it. I know Rob DeMello, as he does so well, was able to also confirm it, that the sources close to the situation has told KHON too, that the Nike/BSN Sports deal is in danger of falling apart because of everything that has transpired. And that's something we said early on, because if you're a big time business like Nike and you're looking at the turmoil affecting a university, like, do you want to do business with that university? Like, you start to kind of backtrack, because if there's anything more than that matters to these big companies, one, the team that they outfit wins, but two, it's the PR side. Like, you don't want to get involved, you don't want to put your brand involved with like another brand that's like, what are they doing? Again, affecting Title IX. Like, I mean, that is not necessarily something you want to do, but also, so all of that stuff with the wholesale and the deal, essentially outfitting Hawaii with like almost $500,000 worth of product. Rob DeMello also was able to get a statement from the University of Hawaii, and this was posted last Friday on his Twitter, that he said, a quote, when asked about the conflicting reports regarding UH's potential apparel deal with BSN Sports and Nike, saying, quote, President Lassner has reached out to assure our prospective partners that the change in athletic department leadership changes nothing about the University of Hawaii's interest in the relationship, and that we look forward to completing the good work that Director Angeles started. So that to me doesn't really answer much. It just, again, this is in reference to the Nike deal.
What a weird way to say that.
It's like, and that's the official statement that was provided from the University of Hawaii to Rob DeMello and KHON too. And that still feels like it's in jeopardy, because okay, sure, you have everyone's going to have interest in a deal with Nike, but that doesn't answer the fact that it didn't give reassurance to me, or I'm sure the fan base, that the Nike deal will still go through. It says they are still, nothing about that the UH's interest in that relationship with Nike has changed. So the interest hasn't changed, duh. But does that mean it's going to be signed, sealed, delivered? Something that we were told is that by all accounts, it was approved by Craig Angeles, but because it's such a big type of deal, it does have to be approved by the powers that be, whether that be President Lassner or whoever. But from a Craig's perspective, they were ready to have, that's why we talk about how the deal is done, except it's waiting for the final signature on UH's side to be officially done. And the further it gets pushed back, that's why I said it's very realistic, people, that even though if Craig Angeles were to stay, if in a perfect world Craig stays, Nike deal gets done, manufacturing takes a long time, everybody. We know
about 9 months.
We know Oregon will be first priority with any of the new uniforms. But for Hawaii being a new school for Nike, there is still a possibility, even though Nike deal happens, that now, because it's being pushed back by the administration at the University of Hawaii and not signed already, Nike can't begin working on the design and the manufacturing of the uniforms, especially for football, that I know a lot of people want green. They want more top print. They want to kind of go back to those throwback threads of like Chad Owens, the June Jones era days, where you kind of had like the black and green going on and everything like that. So even if the Nike deal is signed, sealed, delivered, we are losing time in terms of wanting to get the uniforms that would have been granted to the University of Hawaii, that fans would have gotten to see if they didn't sit on this deal for the last 6 months. And that, by they, I mean President Lassner and anyone else who needs to have the final approval over Craig Angeles for a deal like this. Because on Craig's end, it's done. He's ready to go. It's just sitting collecting dust somewhere by the University of Hawaii administration.
If you are curious about who to blame, the contract has been sitting in UH's possession for multiple months. That I know. Otherwise, make your own assumptions, make your own judgments. I'm going to say this. At some point, Hawaii needs to understand, and I'm not talking the state, I'm talking the University of Hawaii. If they are going to be an international and national partner with multiple different companies, they need to understand that not everybody moves on Hawaii time. Island time is fun, it's cool, it's cute to joke about here in Hawaii because we all get it. Every single day we get it. But at some point, you can't diddly fart around anymore, guys. You need to actually pull the trigger. And that's why I heard that it was in danger of perhaps falling apart. Why I heard that there are many questions on Nike's side about what the heck is going on with Hawaii. And why I heard that while it's very likely this deal will still go through, Nike is very heavily monitoring what is going on with Hawaii. This is a partnership you should want to have for a long time. UH, with respect, shouldn't have interest in being a part of Nike. They should be begging to be part of Nike. The fact that they have a good deal on the table that hasn't been already locked in is honestly an embarrassment and a slap in the face to fans who are already ready and willing to buy merchandise supporting the University of Hawaii athletic programs and can't because of just sitting on our hands. It's typical Hawaii.
The phrase I hate so much, typical Hawaii, where we deserve better than mediocre. And like I said, I know some people that I've heard are kind of like, oh, wow, she's really passionate about this topic, talking about me. And I am, because I'm tired of just getting by, just Hawaii being typical Hawaii, just being mediocre, right? Like, I'm all about the University of Hawaii excelling, and not just the sports teams, of course, but just as a brand, putting Hawaii even more on the map than we already are. And that's why I get so passionate about this, because we deserve more. The fans deserve more. The state deserves more. And we cannot mess any of this stuff up. Anyways, for now, we got to go. So for Paul Brecht, I'm Ku'ule Agbayani. Mahalo for listening and watching. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. It's been Wake Up in the Den. Bye.
KGU AM.